I started working on the CBOE floor when I was 15 in the Texas Instruments Houston oil pit for Merrill Lynch. I worked there every summer. I went to the Chicago Stock Exchange every summer in high school and college. Started full-time in 1989. And that's when I started looking at charts. It was 1989, and there was barely any computers back in those days, but we had one where I was. And I got murdered trying to figure out what to do. And I went and I bought and I read every book on technical analysis, and eventually I had to throw them out. I was like, all these things say, well, this works in a certain condition, this works in another one. I was like, well, that's no help at all. And so what I did was I started doing my own research and looking at 2,500 to 3,000 charts a night on the belief that the immersion, something would come to me. There's got to be some universality to it where people would say, technical analysis is an art form. And I was like, I want no part of an art form. I'm not an artiste. I'm a scientist, right? So let's take a look at it. And it took me 20 years. I mean, I realized early on that to go with strength and go with weakness. It took me 20 years, but there is a commonality to how price action works. And that's when I came to T3 to try and show people how things actually work. And it's very universal. It's very simple to understand, as opposed to going through billions of books of guys who are saying different things work, and this works sometimes, and I do this. It's nuts. I mean, as you can see, most of this business is guys trying to concoct what indicator works with this and that and this and that, and confusing everybody. And it's really much more simple than that. And so after 20 years, I put together the original universal truths of price action, and that made a big difference. And just recently, in the last year, was able to break it down even further, simplify the quantification into 3 universal scenarios. And once you understand that, you don't need anybody, and nothing confuses you, and you know exactly what's going on. And that's why it's so enjoyable to have this. A lot of people, you'll see guys stress even when they're winning, right? Guys smashing keyboards because they're not making enough, right? We're laughing all day because we know what to expect, when it's going to happen, why it's going to happen. And then people will say, when I show, I don't chest bump and say, we're the best, we make all this money. I don't do that. I post a bunch of stuff on Twitter and let people figure it out for themselves. And they'll be like, what about the losers? I'm like, we get out immediately. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, because we expect something to happen when we get in there. And when it does, it's big because of what we know to be true and who's doing what, identifying participants and not thinking and having an opinion. We know what's happening because there's only, in certain conditions, certain things have to be happening, and I can explain that later. But it's relaxing, and we laugh all day, and that's what you want out of your job.